Welcome to the Transformations Review. And if you're watching this video, either you want to learn something about transformations or on the test that we just took, you didn't do so well. Because if you're absent, I'm going to go over this in class, but if you're absent, I'm going to have you watch this video before you take the transformations retest. First of all, we have to know what a transformation is. And it all comes down to vocabulary. Transformations. What are transformations? We talked about them quite a bit in our notes. We talked about them not on a daily basis, but quite a bit towards the end of the book. Well, you can see down below that transformations, here, I'm going to pull out a pen. Let's go with the red. Transformations, they can be a reflection. And when we look over here, we can see reflection. You guys know which one's a reflection? Okay, yeah, this one right here is your reflection, because you can see how it's reflected over the x-axis. We can also have a translation, and I really like this, translation. So it's a slide. So you can see that this one slid down to this spot. When you think of a reflection, think of F being flipped. It's flipped. Dilation, we haven't talked about a lot in class. I mentioned it once or twice. It's not necessarily covered. The dilation, this is a dilation. Dilation is either where it's getting larger or it's getting smaller. So we're blowing it up or we're shrinking it down. That's a dilation. Is it going to be congruent? No, but it's proportional. It still is proportional. And then the last thing we talked about in this book is we talked about rotations. And you can see the rotation right here. You can see how this right here, this side would actually be congruent to this side. This small side right here is congruent to this over here. So when you take the test on transformation, it really helps if you know what a transformation is. Because if it says in a test that you're supposed to use several transformations, if you don't know what a transformation is, it's not going to help you very much. So what we're going to do is we're going to practice a little bit. So let me move this out of the way. Let me get it back to the original. So if I gave you a question, for example, if I said we start with triangle P, and I want you to move triangle P so it fits exactly on to its image down here. And we can even label this. If I grab another pen, let's go with purple this time. So we can, if this is P, we can call this P1. Usually we call it P1. So how do we get from here down to here? It's not simply, it's when we say transformations, because it's not going to be a simple slide. It's not going to be a simple reflect. It actually is going to need multiple transformations to get there. And one of the ways we can do that is to take a look. I built this shape to be almost exactly like that. It's a little off. So how can we get that to be down here? Now, first of all, as you can see, we have to rotate. At some point in time, we have to rotate it. Now, this is where some of you struggled on your test. You use terms like, we rotate it. What is it? And that's where some of you lost points, because where are we going to rotate it? Are we going to rotate it, if I grab a pen again, are we going to rotate it here? Are we going to rotate it here? Are we going to rotate it here? All those have different rotations. And when we rotate it, how far are we going to rotate it? So if I move it back over here, okay, where are we going to rotate it? Well, in my example, I'm going to say, let's rotate it right here. So what can we do on a test to show that? If I erase this, and I grab a pen, let's grab a different color this time. Maybe I'll put a circle here. And maybe I'll call it A. So when I say explain, I might say rotate on point C. I didn't pick my pen out far enough. On point, not C, but on point A. So if I put this back here, I'm going to rotate it. Now the next question is, where are we going to rotate it? Are we going to rotate it clockwise or counterclockwise? Well, what I'd like to do is I'd like to move this down here. So I may say I'm going to rotate the triangle clockwise on point A. How many degrees would that be? If you said 90 degrees, you're right. So I didn't necessarily rotate it right on there because I can't. But if I move it down here, here's a 90-degree rotation. So again, if I grab my pen, rotate on point A 90 degrees clockwise. Sorry if my handwriting is a little sloppy. I'm trying to write. It's one of those things where I see my pen here, but I'm not looking at where I'm writing because I'm actually writing on a pad off to the side. So it's a little tricky to write like this, but it'll suffice. So I say rotate on point A 90 degrees clockwise. So by doing that, now you can see that if I move it down here, it looks the same, but I still have to move it. So I've done a rotation. What do I do next? So if I've already done one, so here's my first step. What do I need to do second? If you're thinking translation, you're right. I need to translate it. And again, a translation is a slide. And in class, we worked on writing some rules for translations. You know, so translate, let's go triangle P. I'm going to erase this. I want a little bit more room. So translate triangle P under the following rule. Oop. Didn't pick up the dot my I again. So, and we talked about that. For example, X. If we need to eventually get it over here, let me change colors again. Eventually, I need to get it here. So if I'm going to move my X, if I count 1, 2, 3, 4. Now I'm moving 4 to the left. Is that going to be minus or plus? Well, if I move to the left, it should be minus. So it's X minus 4. Now I have to move this spot down to here. What do we get? 1, 2, 3. It's 4 again. So it's the Y, and it would be minus because you're going down. And if I make that change, if I go over 4 and down 1, I've now translated it. Now, a couple of things about mistakes that some of you made. Some of you were right on, you were almost there, but you talked about going from here over, and then you just went to the top of it. You didn't go all the way down to here. So some of your numbers were off, and you might not have been proficient on it. So make sure you start from this point, and you still have to get that to this point right here. So let's look at another example. If you had to move this, let me get this. You know, for example, if I said, okay, move it from Q to P, that's pretty simple. If you had to move it from here up to here, you know, obviously it's going to be a translation. And it's going, ooh, I didn't pick my pen up for that dot again. You know, the X is going to go what? Over 3. So X minus 3. And the Y actually goes up 1. So it'd be Y plus 1. Now, you notice I didn't say a point. I didn't say, okay, rotate it from A up. Because it doesn't really matter. Because I can go this one. I can go over 3 and up 1. And it'll be there. Here I can go over 3 and up 1. It'll be there. It's when you start talking about rotations. So, for example, let me erase this. Oh, it does work here. So what would happen if I wanted to go from here down here? Now I'd have to rotate. And a little advice, I always thought it was easier to rotate first and then move it. Otherwise, you'd have to remember if I'm going to translate, or if I'm going to translate it first, form a translation, I've got to stop here. And then if I rotate on this spot, you know, it'll go into the correct spot. So a lot of times I find it pretty handy to reflect first. So for example, I might say, or not reflect, but rotate. I might say rotate on point A 90 degrees. So it's similar to what we had before. So I'm going to rotate it 90 degrees. And this one, you can see it's already lined up. So if I was to write the rules, if I was to say translate it, so, you know, translate with this rule. Now the x, my x is going down how many? 1, 2. So it's going down again, so it's x minus 2. And is the y going anywhere? The y is not going anywhere. Oop. Let me back out of there. So it's x minus 2. And we have y, because the y doesn't change at all. Just want to check something here. Yep, we went down. I just wanted to make sure I told you the right thing over there. Make sure I didn't make a mistake. So if I translated x2, let me grab this again. And so there's 1, there's 2. I don't have to... Oop. I did make a mistake. Did you guys catch that mistake? What did I do wrong? I'm actually going to erase this whole thing. Do you guys figure out what I did wrong? Okay, good. You guys get an A for day. And, when it comes to math, you're going to make mistakes from time to time. And I don't mind if you make mistakes. Catch your mistakes if you can. Or if I make a mistake, call them out. Because, we all make mistakes. What I did wrong was x should equal 0. Because I'm not moving it left or right at all. I'm just going straight down. So it should be y minus 2. So I didn't catch that at first, but once I started to move, it's like, oh wait, I'm not going left or right, I'm going straight down. And those are one of those things I'd like you to really get in the habit of doing in math class, is taking a look at your answers and saying, do they make sense? And if they don't make sense, fix them. Don't just hurry up and do it and be done, but actually think it through and see, does it work? Okay. So you may have problems like this, where it's a simple reflection, where this one's easy, you just reflect over this line. Or sometimes you might have to rotate and then translate to get it. So when you take the retest, think of the different things we've worked with: reflection, translation, rotate. And develop a plan. How do I go from here to here? What can I do first? And again, the tip I can offer you is I tend to like to get it to look like the image first, and then I'll translate it if I need to. Versus if I translate it first and then rotate it, I may make a mistake. So hopefully this review is good for you, and hopefully this will help you get a 3, which is proficient on a test, or a 4. And I'd love to have everybody get a 4. That would make me very happy. Put my little hair here and a little hair here, because I don't have a ton of hair on top, although I got a little hair. But you make me very happy if you got a 4 on this test. So again, if you have any questions about anything, just let me know. I'll be happy to help you out in class. Thanks.